MaryAnne Gilmartin is the president and CEO of 4 City Ratner companies. MaryAnne led the efforts to build the New York Times building, New York by Gary, and the Barclays Center, the centerpiece of the $5 billion mixed-use Pacific Park Brooklyn development, which he will be telling you about today. MaryAnne recently relocated and also lives in Brooklyn in the last, 2-3 years. She's also on the board of directors of BAM, where we're holding this event. And she's been very, very active with other organizations such as the Brooklyn Museum. It is my great pleasure to introduce MaryAnne Gilmartin at the lead of this great transformation of Brooklyn. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ofer. It's a pleasure to be here. I have a lot of material, a lot I'd like to talk about in a very brief period of time. I really want to make sure that I open up the floor for questions. So what I'll do is I'll go through some of the slides for about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So I am MaryAnne Gilmartin, my 21st year at 4 City Ratner Companies, my second year as president and CEO, and I'm proud to be both a resident of Brooklyn and involved in some of the greatest projects that are going on in Brooklyn. So our company, for those of you that don't know, really our core competency is public-private partnerships. I'm fond of saying if it's not difficult, we're probably not interested. We really don't know how to keep it simple, and we do scale, and we often take lots of disparate parts, bring it together, and partner with government to get the job done. So some of the notable projects that I worked on include the buildings at Metro Tech when 20 years ago, the then Mayor Koch would encourage companies to come over the Brooklyn Bridge to look at space in downtown Brooklyn. They'd come over in their bulletproof limousine. They would hop out, take one look around, get back in, and we'd never see them again. Brooklyn's clearly in a very different place today, and so for us at 4 City, where Brooklyn is our front yard, our backyard, and our side yard, it's an extraordinary moment for us to see all that has happened in and around our organization and our headquarters since I started there. We also built the New York Times headquarters, New York by Geary, and the 42nd Street retail project on the south side of 42nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenues. But today I'd like to focus on Brooklyn and Pacific Park Brooklyn. We all know that Brooklyn is the 4th largest city in the U.S. if it were a city unto itself. There are more than 400 cultural institutions, a thriving office market, and of course, rich neighborhoods and tremendous lifestyles. And so for a company that has a platform that can build a lot of different types of buildings, Brooklyn's a great place to do what we do. And we have for a very long time been office developers. Office development was my first love. We really created the big box platform for retail in the boroughs in the late 80s when the large big box retailers wanted to come to New York but were intimidated and unclear about how to entitle sites. And so through that process we learned the retail business, and then of course the darling of development today, residential, is something that we are long on with respect to our project, formerly known as Atlantic Yards and rebranded Pacific Park Brooklyn. So just to go through details, I feel like I don't have to cover with this group just because we all know this. There are very few sites in New York City that offer the density, the access, and the neighborhoods that this site offers. And so we're bullish on Brooklyn and super bullish on Pacific Park Brooklyn. It's served by really the 3rd largest transportation hub in New York City, 9 subway lines, 11 bus lines, and the Long Island Railroad. That's tremendous for us because we really do believe in transit-oriented development. Our entire company, which is a national company, is a core market strategy. 85% of our net operating income is generated out of core markets, of which New York City is on the very top of the list. So for those of you that know the project, you know that it's the cornerstone of the project is the Barclays Center. I would have to say that in everything we've done with the project, when it was known as Atlantic Yards, the easiest thing was building the Barclays Center. The 10-year lead-up, the 35 legal actions, and the transit entrance proved to be the most challenging. That little entrance that sits at the prow of the arena, which you can see shortly will be coming on the screen, was a requirement that we have that arena built and the transit entrance opened at the very same time. The entrance I'm speaking about is the Sedum Ruth, the small subway entrance that actually existed there and was closed in 1964. So we set about to finally break ground on the arena at the same time that we started the work on the transit entrance. And the transit entrance was a $72 million construction project. We did not rebuild the New York City transit system. We simply went down and reinforced columns and corrected for the corrosion in the New York City transit system and put what was supposed to be a fairly simple awning over the entrance. And so it is true that on September 28th, when Jay-Z opened in the arena in 2012, we were really hanging on by a cat hair because we did not have the certificate of occupancy for the entrance. And so it was my great fear that I would have to go into the then President and CEO's office, Bruce Ratner, and say that the good news is that we are scheduled to host Jay-Z in the arena on September 28th, but we can't open the arena because the subway entrance has not yet been finished. Why do I tell you this? Because in some ways it's the story that many of you live, which is that the complexities in our business run far and wide, and sometimes it's the easier aspects of our business that prove to be the most challenging. And so I feel great when I see people coming up and down the stairs of that entrance, because if you divide the investment by the number of people that use it, it somehow feels better on a per capita basis. It is $1 billion arena. It was an arena that was designed by Frank Gehry. It had to take a major inhale at the time of the Great Recession. We had the great benefit, because of the delay, of watching Citi Field, Yankee Stadium, and the Jet Stadium get built. And when we did that, we realized the days of $1 million suites were over, that we needed to right-size the building in terms of its cost and its revenue structure to really meet the new world order post-recession. So we revamped the entire arena. We stepped away from the Frank Gehry design, which was a design that was all things to all people, professional hockey, professional basketball. It had a massive green roof at the time, and all the foundations for the buildings surrounding the arena were being put in place at the very same time. It was an extraordinary undertaking. It was priced at about $1.5 billion. Inside of 1 year, we hired shop architects, and we got the building completely designed and in the ground by our deadline, which was the end of 2009. And that deadline was a real deadline, because if we didn't get the arena started by that date, we'd lose the tax-exempt financing that really made the arena possible. So this was an arena that was financed in the Great Recession. I went to every forgettable office park in the Northeast, talking about the arena with Goldman Sachs, selling the bonds. We had no sense of whether we could, in fact, float these bonds. And I would say along the way, I realized, and by the way, the Nets were a terrible team then. We didn't even have a franchise player, so we were talking about basketball, we were talking about a team, and we were talking about a project that really had a very complicated story around it. And somewhere along the way, I realized that this was not about any of that. It was about brand Brooklyn. And what it really meant was that you were building something in a place that had such deep demand, such deep capacity, and such cultural richness, that if you build it, they would come. For us, it really was not about the arena. It was about the housing. The arena was really the ticket to the dance. And for us, the real attraction to this project was that for a long time, we had felt that the rail yard was a scar that separated the northern neighborhoods from the southern neighborhoods. And so again, building in scale, we undertook to put together one of the most ambitious housing plans that the city has seen on the part of a private developer in the recent past. So it's 2,250 units of affordable housing. It's a total of 6,430 units of housing. It's office space. It's a potential hotel play, and it is about 250,000 square feet of retail. You can see in this image, wow, this is going very fast. I apologize. Okay, I want to go back to the green roof, because I, like you all, are very excited about the roof. Like I said, it was originally part of the design that we had, and like many things, it needed to be value engineered. We just couldn't afford it. We built the arena. It's a rubber roof originally, with Barclays logo on top of it, quite uninspired, and you can see it from a number of vantage points around the area. And so it was a lost opportunity to some of us, but we never let go of this idea that we could go back again one day and put a green roof on top of it. And so in partnership with our Greenland venture, which is the group that's building all the residential around it, we undertook a $50 million investment for that green roof. And it really doesn't benefit the arena. It benefits the community and the residents that will live around the arena. And so really proud of it. By the end of the summer, early fall, you will see all of the sedum in place on the roof, and it will be a perfect companion to that $72 million subway entrance. This is the site plan. We have a number of projects underway. We have four buildings in the ground right now. We are today just launching our condominium, 550 Vanderbilt, which I'll talk a little bit about. This is 100% affordable on Carlton Avenue. It's about 300 units of all affordable housing. We are starting construction this week of another 100% affordable building on 6th Avenue, and that building sits next to B2, which is the modular building that we undertook almost 2 years ago to build the tallest modular building in the world. Like I said, we don't like to keep it easy. So what you're looking at here are images of 535 Carlton. These are designs by Rick Cook. They're designs we're extremely proud of. They are of the neighborhood. They are rich with the color, the feel, and the texture of the communities that they are residing in. And what's amazing about Brooklyn, as we all know, is that Brooklyn has great streets. And so we've gone away from the days of numbering them, lettering them, and calling the buildings by their addresses. And so this will be 535 Carlton, and it's expected to be finished the latter part of 2016. You can see all of this work. Most of you probably seen the incredibly obnoxious sidewalk bridge that we've built around both of those projects. That was, in fact, imposed upon us through our partnership with the Empire State Development Corporation. It is ginormous and really problematic for a lot of people, and I just want to acknowledge it because I agree and I feel the same way. It's also not a cheap date to build something like that, and yet we had no choice. We were required to do it under our project agreements. So again, the images of the building, these are luxury, as I say, defined Brooklyn style, which is that there are beautiful, beautiful apartments with unbelievable light and air, again, of the community, of the neighborhood. This is brick, not steel and glass. There are gardens, there are setbacks where you can grow vegetables. There are great rooms, there are children's playrooms, and there's an abundant amount of open space. About 8 acres of open space will be built in phasing as each of the buildings are brought online. So this is happening right here, right now, and we are marketing the condos presently out of our headquarters at MetroTech. And so we've already, again, launched this week, and we're already selling condos. And really proud of the finishes, the look and feel of the apartments, again, by Rick Cook. Really, really proud. And it's our plan, our hope, and our goal to bring a number of architectural voices into the mix so that every building will be built with a thoughtful level of world-class architecture, but not necessarily the same architect. Okay, this is the B3 building, which we just, again, renamed 38 6th Avenue. This is the building that sits next to the modular building that's under construction. This is a shop design building. Again, we gave the arena block to shop just because they started with the arena. They helped us with B2, and now they're designing this 100% affordable building. This is a building upon which the crane sat to put the sedum roof in place. The crane has come off. The loan closing is this week, and you'll start to see activity on that corner outside the arena. Again, it's slightly east of the modular building. So just quickly with modular, and then I'll open it up for questions. The modular undertaking was an attempt to take the modern means of construction, bring it to our industry, and change the way things are done. And they do say that the world is changed by crazy people, and perhaps we were crazy when we thought we could do it. Certainly everyone did think that we would fail. And what we ended up doing after 2 years and $10 million of R&D, in an industry that doesn't really invest in research and development, is we put together the tallest modular building design in the world. We have a factory in the Navy Yard where we are putting mods together out of steel. We're shipping them 3 miles to the site, and we're stacking them. It's a business we invested in because we believe when you build pipeline, you build scale, and you have a factory to feed, that you could create enormous efficiencies if you did 65% of the work off-site. Every floor being built on the ground floor, super safe, and hired a whole new workforce of union labor to do that at a fraction of what an on-site laborer is paid. The business model made sense. The unions in New York City supported it. They have brought us 170 individuals inside the factory, and we are today putting together mods, and you will see them now being stacked again. We were in litigation with the partner that we chose to do this with, Skanska. It did cause about a 7-month delay. We bought back the business, and we are out stacking the mods. It's a very, very exciting building, not just because to the consumer resident it would be not apparent to that user that the building were put together in any way different than what a conventional building would be built. But the beauty of the building is that it's being done in a fraction of the time, at a fraction of the cost, and the issues around sustainability, if you can imagine taking the process of construction, dirty, noisy, off the streets, bring it into a factory, and then create a much more a better situation for the people who live in the neighborhood around the buildings. And so we're excited about it. It is, of course, a living, breathing experiment. The building, when it stands at the corner of Dean and Flatbush, will tell us whether high-rise modular has an application in the city. And I'll say lastly that if you think about the mayor's 80,000 unit plan to bring affordable housing to the city, which it must be done, when you can build something in a fraction of the time at a fraction of the cost in a highly efficient way, modular construction has tremendous implications for our city, for a city of the 21st century that needs a diverse base of housing so that people can live close to the urban core, and they can do that even if they come from various income backgrounds. And so this mayor does appreciate that. He appreciates that affordable housing spans from low to middle to moderate income. So we're really proud of the modular building. It's been hard. It's not gone as planned. It's cost a lot more money. And I think the business model is still yet to be proven, but I am a deep believer. So this is just some examples of how we put the mod together. It's got the bathrooms, the flooring, everything in the mod when it comes to the site, virtually everything but the paper towel and the paper towel rack. It comes to the site with all of the MEP. I'm going to build it for you. It's like Legos. There's a exoskeletal structure that goes up. The mods get inserted in, and it happens right on site, including elements like the exit stairs are just built into the mods and then shipped to the site. So this would change the face of construction in our city, not for every industry, but certainly for anything that's repetitive in nature. Hospital, bathroom pods, residential, hotel development, really exciting stuff. So again, this is the building when it's finished, and it is another 100%, well, this is a 50% affordable building, and so 50% is market and 50% is affordable. So when you tally it all up, there's close to 1,000 units of affordable housing being built today at the Pacific Park, Brooklyn. We have 300 condos that are on the market, and we have 3 more buildings on the drawing boards. And so for anybody that's been paying attention to the project, we've committed to a 10-year build. This is heavy-duty infrastructure. We're building a rail yard and a platform across the way from these buildings I just showed you. And so we have a tremendous infrastructure project ongoing as you see vertical buildings rise. So with that, I'd like to open the floor, encourage you to ask questions, and let's start a conversation. So these are all mandated by the government, and so in terms of the numbers, it's all based on AMI, so area median income. And so there are units that we'll be building that reach the low income spectrum for area median income. Median income today is about $83,900, I believe. That's 100% for a family of 4. And so the AMIs in our buildings will be everything from 40% of that to 150% of that. So you see the spectrum. So it is true that someone earning $80,000 a year could qualify for one of the higher end affordable building units because 50% of one of our affordable buildings is within the 150% AMI band. So if you went on the website for HDC, you could put your, you could look at the income range, the number of people in a unit, and the rent that's mandated by the housing authorities. But we're going to conform to all of that. But what's great about it is you don't have poor doors, you don't have a slew of low-income housing being built down the street from where all the condos are being built. You have a truly integrated project, which I would say that if you were building a neighborhood from scratch, this is how you'd want to build it. So our partners, Greenland, the Chinese partner that we took on officially last year, wants to see it to believe it. And so I think for us, we are big believers, but to prove out the model, we need B2 to open up. We need people to walk through it and say, wow, this is beautiful, and it looks just as good as the building down the street. And so that is going to happen by the end of 2016, and I think only then will we be able to declare a modular victory for high-rise construction in New York City. If that happens, I would say that Greenland would be enthusiastic, and Pacific Park Brooklyn would be one of the first customers. I want to say that back in the days of Frank Lloyd Wright, Buckminster Fuller, modular construction has been huge for quality control and single-family housing. It is not about doing it on the cheap. It's not prisons and parking garages. Modular construction, if you think about the elements that a building is subject to on a site, with rain pouring in it and wind and the parade of trades going up and down the site every day, it is an extraordinary thing to behold, to walk through our factory and see how clean, how safe, and the quality of work that goes into building these mods. And it has tremendous implications for the quality of work, such that you could use it for 100% market buildings as well as modular building, condo buildings. So that is being done, 12 stories or less. But like I said, we don't like to keep it simple. We had no interest in that. We are skyscraper developers, high-rise developers, and we believe in density. So for us, the attraction was to do something that's never been done before. The tallest modular building in the world is a concrete building, 25 stories in Wolverhampton, England. And next to that, there's very, very little that compares. We're building a steel building, not a concrete building, and we're doing it with new technologies and intellectual property. And the appeal for us was to build it in scale because, again, for our city to maintain its place as a 21st century city, we need to embrace diversity, diversity in housing stock, and density. And you have amazing transit where you can do the kinds of buildings that I think modular can lend itself to. Yes. So the chassis come from Virginia. So they're steel chassis frames that are shipped in, no different than a curtain wall might come in from Canada. And then once we put them in the factory, they're worked on in families. It's in the Navy Yard. We have a factory right in the Navy Yard, and there's 170 people inside that factory working every day to put the pieces together that make up a mod. And a mod can be a studio apartment. It can be half of a one-bedroom unit. So it's interesting. When we went to the unions, people said, you'll never get the trade unions to agree to this. The pitch was like this. You're doing project labor agreements on the margins. You're saving people 5, 10%. That's not going to change the world, and it's certainly not going to keep you, the unions, relevant. What if you became part of a new business that not only could be born and bred in Brooklyn, but could be exported? And so I think that there is a lot of application for this because we have the highest quality of worker. We have the unions behind us. We have a lot of water around us. And I think you could export this. And the sad truth is that the factory itself is not a limiting factor. There are factories all over the city that you could create a guerrilla factory if you had a project. It's really the technology and the fact that you learn by doing. And some of the things we had to prove out, like when you pulled the mods to the site and you hung them from a crane and you lifted them down and connected them, would it work? And would it take a lot longer than we anticipated to connect those mods? We've done all of that, and it still is, there is no fatal flaw. And so it's really about the hiccup we had with our partner and the idea that we need to get back to work and we need to prove out the numbers. If we do that, I think it not only has broad implications for New York City, but certainly the metropolitan area and maybe beyond. So there was some stuff written about what happened if the building wasn't entirely sealed, and I would say there's some corrective work that we did, but any of you have walked around a construction site and you see what the condition of the site is as the building's built, it is 90% cleaner, safer, contained and insulated than a standard construction site. So again, nothing that was different than what we normally encounter, and all of it has been corrected. So let me start by reminding all of us that the Chinese own more bonds, treasury bonds for this country than anybody else. They own the Waldorf, they own Chase Plaza, and I would say to you that it's a global economy. And I think for us, and as somebody who negotiated the transaction, it was about the equity. An enormous amount of equity needs to get put into this project in a relatively short period of time to make it happen. And that was really important to us. And a company that could understand the enormity of this project, there aren't a lot out there. And so the fact that the Greenland Group, which is built in 80 provinces in China, 7 of the tallest buildings in China, was deeply capable of understanding what this project needed. On top of that, the stuff that we believed strongly in was that this was a partnership. And it turns out there is no real word in Chinese for joint venture. So we created a cooperation. And I spent most of my waking hours during those months negotiating major decisions. And I would say to you that to their credit, they understand that this is a neighborhood that you must know to be able to excel in. And so the face of the partnership is Forest City. The work that goes on in the office is a global enterprise in some ways. There are 15 Chinese professionals working in our headquarters, but there are 50 to 60 people at Forest City that are driving this project forward. And so to my mind, if it goes faster, if the quality is honored, the cooperation is there, what better example of what the global economy should mean than to do this in partnership with other international names. You know that our partner in the basketball team is a Russian company, and we've very successfully managed the partnership where he owns 45% of the arena. So we have a little UN situation going on the corner of Flatbush and Atlantic, but I can tell you that it has gone very well. It's a tribute to the borough and to our city that there is so much interest, international interest in investing in our real estate. So I want to thank you for listening and for having me here today. Thank you.